Hey friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to a preview of this game right here. This is River Valley Glassworks. It's published by Allplay, who is sponsoring today's video, so a huge thank you to them, and it is designed by Adam Hill, Ben Pinchback, as well as Matt Riddle, which those designers might sound familiar to you because they have designed together in the past games such as Motor City, and I do believe Three Sisters as well. But yeah, River Valley Glassworks is the newest coming from Allplay, and the interesting thing about this one is that this is the first game that Allplay is bringing to crowdfunding by itself. So usually with Allplay crowdfunding campaigns, they have multiple games that are coming to a campaign together, but this one is all on its own, and there's also going to be some very fancy deluxe versions of this game available. So they're going to have a deluxe version, and they're also going to have a founders version, which I believe is even more deluxe than the deluxe one, which sounds absolutely fantastic. The one that I have here with me today is a prototype. It is also, I believe, what is going to be the retail version of it, or the most affordable version of it. So yeah, if you guys want to see all about River Valley Glassworks, then just keep on watching. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also hit the subscribe button down below if you yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. I will put the link to the crowdfunding campaign down in the description box so you guys can go and check it out if it is something that you guys find interesting and you think you will enjoy. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this preview of River Valley Glassworks, shall we? So just like all of my other preview videos, I'm going to quickly get into a little bit of an aim of the game, as well as a look at all of the components in front of me, and then we'll get right into how exactly River Valley Glassworks plays. So the aim of the game is that each player is going to be playing as a character. Each of the characters has their own individual player board with the character art on the side here, which the art is by Andrew Bosley, so you know it is going to be beautiful, but each character is going to have a different kind of name for their glassworks. So this is Rosie's Grit and Glass. You know, I had to choose her because Jenna Rose, you know, the garden, y'all know. But each player is going to be playing as a different character. This game does play 1 to 5 players, so there is a solo mode, and it goes up to 5 players. So there are 4 other characters here. We have some frogs, a beaver, a turtle, as well as an otter, maybe? Is that an otter? I think it might be an otter. But yes, there's 4 other characters there with their different boards. All of the characters play the same, but you do have your own individual player board. And we are going to basically be fishing these different pieces of sea glass, or I guess river glass, out of this river here. This river is going to be continuously flowing, and the sea glass is going to continue to kind of flow down the river, and we are going to be placing the sea glass or river glass into our glassworks in order to gain victory points in different ways. So we are trying to fill in rows and columns in different ways, which we'll get into. But ultimately, by the end of the game, you want to be the player with the most victory points. So that's everything for a quick aim of the game. Let's take a look at all of the components in front of me. So like I mentioned, each player is going to have a player board. This is a prototype, so the player boards have been slightly changed since this version, but they have since added this little piece on the side that has notches, and this is so you can keep track of how many pieces of glass you have taken from the river, because once one player has taken 17 pieces from the river, the game ends there. Each other player gets 1 additional turn, and then that'll be the end of the game. So they do have these little pieces here, but these will be actually connected to the boards, I believe, when the final version comes out. So you have that. You have this little piece here that actually notches right into this track, so you can kind of keep track. Each time you take glass, you will bump that up how many glass pieces you took, and then when you do reach that 17, that'll trigger the end of the game. Each player also has a little satchel here. This says max of 5 on it because you can only have a max of 5 pieces of glass in your stash. And I will mention that that is different glass than the glass that you're placing into your glassworks, which I will explain once we get into how to play. But you can only have a max of 5 in your satchel at a time. And that is everything for each individual player. We also on the side here have this River Valley Glassworks bag that has all of the glass pieces in it. I will mention that the rarity of the different colors is kind of different. So you have the most common being the white and the purple, and then the next would be the light blue, dark blue. The next would be the light green and dark green. And then the most rare are the yellow and the orange. So that is what we have in here. Additionally, you can add in the black, or you have to add in the black when you play with 5 players. If you're playing with 4 or less, you just would leave the black glass out. But if you are playing with 5 players, you add that in. We also have this little bear as the first player token that is beside me there. And then the main part of the game is the river. So obviously it is River Valley Glassworks. You have the kind of lake right here, I believe, or the pond, and then you also have the river stemming off of it. So you're always going to have some in the pond, and then you're always going to have some on each of the different sections of the river. And each of the sections of the river is corresponding with one of the shapes of glass. So you have 6 different shapes of glass. You have hearts, diamonds, hexagons, triangles, circles, and then you have this little like pear-shaped, which I think they are my favorite. They're very cute. And then at the beginning of the game, you're going to be placing 5 into the lake or the pond, and then you're going to be placing however many pieces of glass onto each section of the river, depending on the rock that is on that river there. So the rocks are going to determine how many pieces of glass are going to respawn on each of the sections of the river when you do flow the river each turn. So I believe that is everything for all of the components, the aim of the game. So let's get right into exactly how River Valley Glassworks plays, so you guys can better determine if River Valley Glassworks is something that you want to back over on crowdfunding. So let's get into it. So getting into how River Valley Glassworks plays, I've kind of already gone over the setup of the game, but basically you're going to place out the river board in the center. You're going to place 5 of the pieces of glass in the lake/river, and then depending on the rock on each of the sections of the river, you're going to place that many pieces of glass on that spot. Each player is going to have their player board. They're also going to have their little tracker here to track how many pieces of glass they have. They will also have their satchel, and at the beginning of the game, each player is going to draft 3 pieces out of the bag and then place those into their satchel. The last thing is one player is going to be chosen as the first player, and then you would get right into playing the game. So how exactly is the game played? On your turn, so saying I was the first player, you would look at whatever pieces of glass you have in your satchel, and you can place either 1 piece of glass or 2. The 2 has to be 2 of the same, but let's go over if you would place 1. So you would take a look at the different shapes. So like I mentioned, there is a heart, there is a diamond, a hexagon, a triangle, a circle, and a pear. I'm gonna call it a pear. Could be like a jelly bean, but it's a pear. It's a pear. So you would take one of the pieces of glass and you would place it onto the corresponding part of the river that has that shape. So I would take this heart and then I would place it onto the heart. And because this is at the end of the river, this is not the best situation or the best example, but basically you are going to then be able to take from one of the adjacent river sections. So because this is at the end, the only adjacent river section is the one in front of it. You can't take from the rivers. So if I placed a heart here, I would then take both of the pieces that were in the adjacent spot here, and then I would be able to place these 2 pieces of glass into my glassworks. So basically how this works is you are going to be going from left to right, filling in different rows and columns, and each row is going to have to be a different color, or each column, sorry, is going to have to be a different color. So these 2 are different colors, so I would immediately place, 1 here, and then 1 here. So the order of them does actually matter, because the further you go to the right, the higher the amount of victory points. So you are actually trying to keep in mind what colors you're going to be able to get more of and what colors you won't necessarily get more of. If you do place a color further to the right, you are going to get more victory points for the more of that color you get. So if you could manage to actually get a more common color further to the right, you'll be able to get more of those, or it's going to be easier to get more of those, and that would then allow you to get more victory points, if that makes sense. So you could actually decide, for example here, I might do the blue and then the white, because I do know that the white is slightly more common than the blue. So I would place those there. You would then take the section of the river board that I took from, we would place it at the back of the river, push it up, the river is now flowing, the different pieces of glass are moving forward on the river, and then depending on the amount of rocks on that connecting, so I placed it here, the one adjacent to it, depending on how many rocks are there, that is how many pieces of glass is going to respawn there. So we're going to take 2 of those, and we're going to place them right in that new section there. So that would be a player's turn. It would then be the next player. That player would place a piece out, look at the 2 adjacent spots on the river, and then decide which one to take from. And then once a player has not many pieces of glass left, you can either decide to do this, you know, when you have no glass left in your satchel. You can decide to do it when you have some glass left in your satchel, but when you take this action, you are forced to take 4 glass from the lake. So when I say that you don't want to leave too many things in your satchel when you take this action, it's because this can only hold a max. So if I had 2 left in here and I took 4 from the lake, I would actually only be able to place 3 into my satchel, and then whatever pieces of glass are left over actually has to go into my overflow. And that is not good, because if you ever get pieces of glass into your overflow, that is actually negative points at the end of the game. It is recommended that you only take this action of taking glass from the lake when you only have 1 or no glass left in your satchels. So that is another action that you can do. But going back to the main turns, and like I mentioned, you can either place 1 piece of glass or 2 pieces of glass. So for this example here, I actually have 2 of the same shaped glass. So I have 2 of the hexagons. What I can do with this is I can actually on my turn decide to play 2 of the same shape into any of the sections. So this actually makes this shape into a wild. So I can actually decide to place these 2 into any section on the river. So I could decide to place both of these in here, and then I could take these 2 from this spot. I would then actually have a white, which is a color that I already have in my Glassworks. So if you ever get a color that is the same as another color, you don't put it into another column, you actually put it on top of that. So that is now going to be your white column, and that's where you're going to be placing all other whites that you get throughout the game. And then I would place the orange in the next column to the right of it. So play would continue like this. Every player is going to be placing a piece or 2 of glass into the river, taking from adjacent sections of the river until one player has gotten 17 pieces. Once that player has gotten 17 pieces, they would let everyone else know. Each other player, aside from that player, would get 1 more turn, and then you would go into final scoring. And final scoring is compiled of a few different things. So like I mentioned, you're wanting to be getting both rows and columns. The rows are going to be compiled of all different colors, and then the columns are going to be all the same color. So you're first going to look at the rows, and you're going to be looking at each row that you successfully filled from left to right without any gaps. So in this situation here, I literally only have 4 pieces on my board here, but to make it super simple, you have 3 in this bottom row here, so that would score me 4 victory points because I had those 3 continuous from left to right. But this next one here, I actually don't have anything in the first spot, so I would actually not gain any points for that. But you are just going to look at every single row and then going from left to right. However far you got before the first gap, that would be how many victory points you got for that row. All the way up to, if you completely fill an entire row, it is 22 victory points. And then you would go into looking for your 2 tallest columns. So you're going to have all of those different columns compiled of all of the same color. You're going to look at your 2 tallest, and those are going to be the 2 that you score for. So, like I mentioned, the further to the right that your column is, the more victory points that you're going to get. Because if I had a full column all the way over here, that would get me 30 victory points, whereas if I had a full column on more to the left, that would get me 10 victory points. So further to the right, the more victory points you're going to get for those columns, but obviously the more you are going to have to build out that row. So you're going to look for those 2 tallest columns and you're going to score those. If there are a tie between 2 columns, you're going to score the one furthest to the left. So the one that's going to have the lower victory points. So that is everything for the columns. And then the last thing you're going to score for is your overflow. So like I mentioned, if you ever get any into the overflow, you're unfortunately going to get -3 victory points per piece of glass that is in your overflow. So like I said, it's something that you want to keep in mind and maybe try to avoid. I will mention that there are 8 different colors, I believe. There's 8 different colors of glass, and there's only 7 columns. So once you have filled those 7 columns, there is going to be 1 color of glass that you're going to be trying to avoid. Because if you do end up drafting that color that you can't place anywhere, it's going to have to ultimately get into or go into your overflow. So that is everything for final scoring. You're going to look at rows, you're going to look at your 2 tallest columns, and you're going to look at your overflow. And then whatever player has the most victory points at the end will be the winner of River Valley Glassworks. And yeah, that is everything for the overview of River Valley Glassworks. All right, friends, so that is going to be everything for today's preview of River Valley Glassworks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a big thumbs up. Also hit the subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. Huge thank you again to Allplay for sponsoring today's video, and keep a lookout for my live stream of River Valley Glassworks. Like I said, I will be playing the solo mode of this. I believe it's going to be on March 24th, so keep an eye on that. It's going to be on a Sunday, and I'm really excited for that. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I love you so, so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Bye, friends.